Hey guys, it's Max Rich again, and today we are going to go through another exercise, a technical exercise to help get you much better at a couple different things as far as your left hand is concerned, or your fretting hand, left hand, right hand, whichever one you might use to fret, that's the one we're going to be working on today. One of the most important things I run into, especially with guitar players who complain about having to squeeze the neck a lot, or like, man, I wish I could play with lower action, or, ones who like hands start to get sore and tired after a while changing chords, or they're trying to play this fast lick and they just can't get it, and a lot of times they chalk that up to having to push too hard, and because they're pushing so hard they end up having to slow down because it takes more effort to push your fingers farther down. So before we start the exercise, the one thing I want to talk about is pressure in your left hand. If you go ahead and you take any note, so like let's just take the low A, right? If you just touch the string without pushing down, you get like a dead note. It's almost like a harmonic. But if you slowly push the string down from that dead note until you kind of get a note. Now I'm getting a sort of a note, but it's a buzz note, right? Not a good quality note. Now I'm going to take that buzz note and I'm going to push a little bit harder until the buzz goes away. There we go. Right there. Okay, so that is the amount of pressure that you should pretty much be playing everything with. Especially if you're on electric guitar, you need much less pressure than you probably think you do. Oftentimes, if you go ahead and try this at home, you'll see most likely what's going to happen is you're going to be like, whoa, that's way less pressure than I play with, right? And you could test this out with your middle finger. I'm getting kind of a little crackle from my pickup, but I got to clean the pots on this guitar. Right there. So, we'll just use the neck pickup for today. Okay, so basically, what you want to do is you want to test the pressure in each finger, making sure that you can play with the bare minimum amount of pressure in your left hand in order to get a note to not buzz. If you're pushing any harder than that, you're basically just wasting excess energy. You're just using energy that doesn't really serve any purpose. If you push too hard, you might even bend the string. You might go like this. Right? So it sounds like I'm like literally bending the string, and that's totally not what you want. So you want to play with the least amount of pressure possible that'll still give you a good note. Now with that in mind, what we're going to do, I'm going to give my bridge pickup one more try. Let's see what happens. Now with that in mind, we're going to stay on this 5th fret, and we're going to play over a 4 fret span, meaning 5, 6, 7, and 8. And what we're going to do, we're going to put our pinky on the A string, 8th fret, and then we're going to put our first finger on 5, middle finger on 6, ring finger on 7, and we're basically, you can either use a pick or finger picking, or in the case, I'm going to use hybrid picking, where I play the low string with my pick and the upper string with my middle finger or ring finger. And basically, the idea is to keep that pressure concept in mind, keep everything really light on the neck, don't push hard at all, just push hard enough so that you can get a note to ring out. And then we're going to play, this pinky finger is going to be played every single time, and we're going to alternate with our fingers on the bass string, 5, 6, 7, 6. So it's going to go like this. Like that. And then we're going to take this pinky finger and move it gradually up one string at a time. But before we do that, I don't want you to keep your fingers down. So I don't want you doing this, where you're keeping your first finger down, then keeping your middle finger down, and so on. I want you to only ever have 2 fingers down, the pinky plus the one that you're currently playing. So, and then you lift your first finger up, and then you lift your ring finger up. And then there you go. Now what I also don't want you to do is I don't want you to be doing this. The point of this exercise is to help you develop better finger independence, better pressure, but also avoid reaching out with your first finger or other fingers as you push down the string. So the idea is to do it slowly enough that you can keep the fingers that aren't being used they're not pushing on the string, but they're also not far away. The pressure that you're using should be equal between the pinky and whatever other fingers being played. They should each have 50% of the pressure, and the remaining two fingers that aren't being used, those are just floating in the air nice and calmly. They're not being used at all. When you start doing this, what you're doing is you're using a ton of excess energy once again, which will lower your efficiency and increase fatigue and just basically break your entire technique down, right? So to avoid doing that, you want to try to relax your hand as much as possible. The fingers that aren't being used need to be relaxed. If they're tight or taut or like, sticking out at all, that means it's a definite dead giveaway that they're not relaxed. So with that in mind, once again, 5, 6, 7, 6. You see there's very little movement between my fingers on the bass string. They're not coming out. They're not doing that type of a thing, right? They're just barely moving at all. The most I get away from the string is maybe like 3/4 of an inch, maybe an inch, but an inch is probably a bit too much. You want to be under an inch away from the string. And then you take your pinky and you move it to the next string. Same thing. This is where the hybrid picking comes in handy, or the finger picking. And then the next string. And now I've gone through all strings with my pinky. I'm going to repeat the exact same process with every other finger. So I'm going to now keep my ring finger static on one string, and the bass string will be played 5, 6, 8, 6. Same concept. The fingers use minimal amount of pressure, and the two fingers that are playing use the same amount of pressure, 50-50. And then you take that and you move it to the next string. And you guessed it, middle finger is next. This one is usually the hardest for people because oftentimes they have a very difficult time splitting their middle finger and ring finger because your middle finger and ring finger are connected to the same tendon. If you look in your hand, right, you see these like lines coming off your hand. Basically, what that is, those are tendons running off of running from your knuckles down to your wrist, and the two from your middle finger and ring finger, they connect down by like in between your wrist and your knuckles, like somewhere towards the bottom third towards your wrist, and then from there they run as one tendon down to your wrist. So they have a very hard time splitting because they're connected, whereas it's easier to split your first finger and middle finger and pinky, but the middle finger and ring finger often have a bit of trouble, and that's why this one will most likely be the hardest. So basically, once again, same exact concept. Light pressure, try going slowly, making sure that your fingers aren't coming far off the fretboard. And then finally, the first finger. This one is usually about as difficult as the pinky is, but the first finger stays put now. And now we're doing 6, 7, 8, 7 on the bass string. And that's basically the entire exercise. Now, if you find this being extremely difficult, like let's say maybe you could do it on the low strings, but as the static finger, the one that stays put, moves up and up and up, and you're getting close to the third string, the second string, the first string, and it becomes really, really hard, pretty much impossible. One thing that can help, because in reality what's going on is you're doing big splits. You're doing something like this, or like this, you know, or like this, or like this, right? Where one finger is playing the low string and the other finger is playing like the high E, and so that split can often be really difficult. The way you can make it easier is by moving up, the frets get smaller, so it becomes a bit easier. And if it's too easy, you can rock it all the way down at the first fret and make it much more challenging. So you can increase the difficulty, or you can increase or decrease it by moving to wider frets or to narrower frets, and that'll help you out. Either way, go slowly. Make sure that you're getting crystal clear, nice sounding notes, low pressure, even pressure between the two fingers that are playing, and make sure that the fingers that aren't playing aren't coming too far off the fretboard, and you should have much better finger independence pretty quickly after that. So I hope you guys liked it. If you did, please like, share, subscribe the video, and there's plenty more of these technical ideas and song lessons coming out soon, so stick around and check it out for more.